Right, we're back again. I'm Mr. J, and this is the Underground Experience Show. This week, we start the new year off right with Rex. We'll have Rex coming on in a little bit. As always, we would like you to go to www.empiremusic.com to check out the funder for the Underground Experience and how you can tap in and be a part of funding that documentary. And as well, looking for the new posts that we'll be having coming up on other underground artists, independent artists, stalwarts, veterans, and also for those artists who are looking to get radio play on the Underground Experience radio show on WDRB. We'll have you turn in your music and your radio ready so while we're waiting for Rex to come on and accept the invite. We hope that everybody has had a safe and healthy New Year's, and we are starting it off this year. We will be having some more radio play for independent artists and have our promo up on the radio show in these coming next days. We're also looking for sponsors, so anybody interested in sponsoring the show on WDRB, we would like y'all to tap in and use our contact info either here or at www.empiremusic.com. That's music spelled MUSIQ.com. And working on getting Rex to come on in and accept. All right, it looks like we're about to get him on.
Peace. What's happening? Hold on.
What's going on, man? How's everything been?
Peace, King. How are you? I don't. For some reason, I don't know. Can you see me?
I think it's looking kind of dark on your side, I believe.
Hold on one second. Trying to figure out why it's not showing visible. Oh, okay. I think it's because of that. Hold on. It's just watching it. It's just looking the other way. That's why. Apologies.
Right.
That'll be better, right?
Yeah, that'll work. You know what I mean? Technical
Sometimes
difficulties happen all the time,
analog.
man.
Sometimes we analog.
You know what I mean?
Yeah. Peace.
So,
Peace.
just for the people, who may not be familiar with everything you've done, give them a little background on who you are and how you got started.
All right, so peace and respect, everyone. First and foremost, my name is Rex. Rhythmatic Eternal King Supreme is the acronym. I'm an MC from Lawrence, Massachusetts, and I've been, doing my thing in the underground hip hop scene for over 25 years now. I've just been tapped in for a long period of time, always staying true to the aesthetics of boom bap hip hop and like to color outside of the lines, but remain true to the lyricism and the art form.
So when you first started out, what was your inspiration? How did that really start out?
A lot of cats can equate a few films to the starting point for all of them, and I think between Wild Style Wars and Beat Street, those were kind of like introductions if you were on the outside looking in, not coming from New York, but being able to tap into like mixtapes and different videos like that. I had family members out in East New York, and what was coming from out of that sound was trickling this way through Massachusetts when I was a young kid. So um, I got into hip hop first as a b-boy, um, because like I had older cousins who were b-boys, and uh, that was what I was super interested in the beginning. But what really called me was the mic after watching Beat Street. Which is funny because that's like I got to Beat Street because of breakdancing, but it was the Kumo D Christmas rap that really like kind of sold it for me, and got me to the point where I was like, okay, I can tell these storylines and tell narratives um, about what I come from. It was just something so lively and different, and hip hop from that point was everything. Like it was just there was nothing like it then, and there's nothing like it now. You know.
So, what's the first? Can you remember the first thing you actually wrote about?
I remember my first rhyme. It was called Puma. I remember the rhyme. Like I made up words in the rhyme. I was rapping about Pumas because Run DMC had my Adidas, and I just wanted to. I didn't really have like that's what was popular then. So I didn't really know. I didn't even. My name wasn't even Rex yet. It was MC Rock, and as MC Rock, I wrote this song called Puma. I remember two rhymes I had. It was Pumas and drugs. I wrote a song about drugs, telling people not to use drugs. Yeah, so those were my first two rhymes.
And what was your first foray into the studio like? Like you just kind of started writing rhymes. When's the first time you kind of really got into the studio and started laying down your vocals and stuff like that?
All right, so this is gonna be real funny. Like so, like my first time going, my first time going in the studio was a little unorthodox. I didn't go in. I went in with my eighth grade teacher. Her name was Mrs. Barayfield. Ms. Barayfield took us into school. Like she was like a really cool teacher, and we gave her help. It was terrible how we treated Ms. Barayfield, and a lot of things that I implemented into my lifestyle right now are things that she kind of introduced me to. Like we went to the studio for the first time with Mrs. Barayfield, and the first time I experienced meditation was with Miss Barayfield in our class because we were like wild kids, everybody like anxiety, ADHD, ADD, bipolar, whatever you can think of, like going on in our classroom. That's what was going on, and I was like a ringleader. And Miss Barayfield had cool ways of like getting us to like find peace. We just didn't get it at that time. But one time she took us to the studio, and we we recorded a a rendition of, you remember the Kokomo's?
Yeah.
I don't know what the name of that song is, but it's like the ones who like done appropriated all of our music. I think it was the Beach Boys or something like that. I didn't know nothing about that at that time. I wasn't of an age where I could really tap in and be about our peoples or anything like that. But we wrote we recorded a version of the Kokomo. So that was my real first introduction to being in the studio. But on a hip hop level, I recorded a demo around 1997. I recorded a demo, my first demo, uh, with some homies. I was at UMass Amherst, and I used to go to this radio station in UMass Amherst called the Breath Control, with Shay Boogie. Shay Boogie was this cat from the Boston area. He was going to UMass Amherst at the time. He became my first manager, and he was working at what's now Traffic Entertainment and Brick Records. He was working as an A&R at what was Landspeed before Traffic Entertainment Group. And so Yeah, Shay Boogie brought me in the studio. He did, and my homie Magoo and Rockwell were the Soul Searchers, my very first production crew. They produced my first two albums. Along Came the Chosen, and they produced Reckless. And I went into the studio. I went to the studio with them, and I recorded, I think, about a 10 or 11 track demo called 1999 2000 BC. Uh, it was like I always had these like spiritual like revelation type thought processes behind like album titles and Along Came the Chosen was like that. I think Greatest Unknown, Greatest X. There's mathematics involved in it. A lot of like the science behind like the titles of my stuff was like that. So like yeah, the first project was 1999 BC.
That's dope. And you said, you like you really try to keep real, I guess, meaningful things behind your music and the titles. What really drives that?
I come from a spiritual background, very religious, honestly. I was tapped into, and people who know me for the past, few years know me for doing the rising rituals online. But growing up, my grandparents, they were Jehovah Witness. My mother was had us going to a Pentecostal church before she became a Christian. I was really immersed in Christianity and uh, the Jehovah Witness Kingdom Hall for a period in time, and um, coming up in Lawrence, Massachusetts, there were a lot of members of the 5% Nation, Gods and Earths, and I would be in the park and I would talk to a lot of brothers about the math and although I didn't I didn't gravitate towards this, a lot of that kind of like seeped in and soaked in like conceptually in my thinking process, like. And obviously if you in hip hop and you don't uh have any ties or connection to Clarence uh X, like Clarence 13 X, then there's something missing, because like a lot of our foundation principles and a lot of like the language, the Ebonical tongue is interwoven in that in those lessons. So some of that was my youth as well. So a lot of that narrative just remained engrossed in me, because coming up in the environment I was in, I was always seeking, something higher than self to kind of like motivate and guide and be defining principles in my home, because my father wasn't really there. My father died very young, uh, AIDS complications, and my mom was, you know, on drugs. We're in and out of foster home. Uh, there were a lot of things and a lot of reasons for me not to be able to do what I was able to do in my life. And I believe, the ancestors guided me like from very young. I think I was guided throughout my lifetime to be to the position I'm in now, and to be able to like, carry myself and be wiser in my years now the way I am.
And man, the people you gravitated towards musically, that they also, I know during the time of course, Rakim and the Guru, they had a lot of, Nation, Seventh, um, seventh, percenter, uh, terminology and bent towards what they doing. Did that kind of make you gravitate towards them as well?
So I mean, not honestly, not so much. Like as I got older and like, I was like attempting to find myself, and I was losing myself from the church, distancing myself from Christianity and the church, uh and finding more representation in things that kind of resemble people that look like me, and information that was all inclusive for people like us. Um, it would seem that, like, it would be those individuals that I gravitated towards. But number one for me was always KRS One. I loved Public Enemy, and you know, KRS One was the one, though. KRS One as a teacher, everything that he embodied in terms of the principles of hip hop, and then also, just like the way he wrote his narratives, how creative he was with Return to the Boom Bap, and edutainment, and really for me the biggest one was Return to the Boom Bap. Like, that was the one that really, like, kind of like had me tunnel vision in my writing, and being focused on being creative in my narratives. And hip hop, like, kind of raised me like it raised a lot of individuals. Um, Absolutely. So more than anyone, I would say it was him. And then later on came, such phenomenal writers like, Organized Confusion, and OC with Word Life, and Jules, and all of DITC, of course, Gangstar. And when the Roots came out, that was like a whole nother level, a whole nother, like, it was the Roots. Common was phenomenal and phenomenally big, and Nas has always been, like, the quintessential, like, when it came to, any narrative. I mean, for me, it wasn't so much Wu-Tang. Shout out to Complex in the building. It wasn't so much Wu-Tang for me. Although Raekwon was a big, big, big uh influence on, like writing style, and how to carry cadence, and just wax poetic in general. It's interesting that, like, the individuals who I think I would be most like Jizza and, Inspector Deck, like, they weren't the ones I automatically gravitated towards. And I think, there was something in, stylings that, like, you can pull a little bit from all these different artists and appreciate them for who they are, even though they're not, like, their narrative storytelling is so much different than yours. That's why I love Scarface so much, because Scarface, that voice, and, the intricate pen, but the ability to tell a story in a way that is so profound without having to, you know, uh, tell the story in the same kind of writing, like, narrative that, like, a KRS One would, or a Jizzle would. That was so phenomenal for me, to see these different individuals who could tell stories the way they did. So, you know, I'm appreciative of all these pens.
And definitely, those type of storytellers are definitely, linchpins in the culture. Um, you mentioned Scarface. I definitely got a chance to check him out. When he uh, after he did his Tiny Desk performance, he went on tour and did a whole little Tiny Desk type of club tour, and just his, like you said, the presence, the storytelling, all that was just amazing.
Yeah,
Um, do you kind of take some things from that when you perform as well? Is it
absolutely,
certain?
absolutely. I was I was blessed while I lived in Florida. I lived in Broward County for quite some time, like about 7 years of my life. And when I was down there, I was blessed to see Scarface come out and perform. And he performed like a very intimate performance of, like, it couldn't be more than like 150 people tops, in a small little nightclub. And those are always my favorite, kind of venues to perform at. I've done big, big, big crowds, thousands of people, and I've done, like, crowds with like two people. And it's always the best for me to, like, perform in front of crowds that are, like, more intimate, And I got to see Scarface in one of those intimate settings, and to see how commanding he was on the stage and how comfortable he was interacting and engaging with us person to person. That there's so much value in that. I place so much value in my ability uh, to resonate with a listener, like person to person, in smaller, intimate settings. And in larger settings, you have to find your parts of the crowd and kind of tap in and then tap out and go to other aspects of the crowd so you can keep individuals engaged, I think. But I love a setting that's smaller and allows for a more, person to person feeling.
Excuse me. Is there specific, venues that you like, across the country, specific places that kind of bring back memories when you go into them?
Shout out to Fan talking about Sammy's Patios. That's one of those events I came out and performed. Shout out to my homie Terminology, was doing a show recently in Massachusetts, and a bunch of, his term had such a successful year this year. And, I was blessed because that's my brother. We have a brotherhood. I was able to come out and rock certain shows that he was rocking at, and it was dope. It's really dope that, like, we have certain individuals back home who are always focused on, paying it forward. And he always gives me salutes and always, take the mic, King, do your thing, like, in these environments. And I did that in this show in Sammy's Patio. That's one of those ones I can think of. Some of the legendary Massachusetts venues that I can think of are, there was a spot called Western Front in Cambridge, Massachusetts. There's the Middle East in Cambridge, Massachusetts. There's Bill's Bar was a big one in Boston, right on Lansdowne Street, across from the Green Monster. You're literally looking at the Green Monster, on Lansdowne Street, legendary street. That's where we came up, ciphering, battling outside of the venues, the House of Blues, the Hard Rock Cafe. Those kind of venues are like, 300 persons or less, which to, the average hip hop, goer, those are the type of venues where you can have an intimate setting as opposed to having thousands of people in the crowd. Um, there are a lot of things that the youth missed out on that we gotta bring back. It's our duty to kind of like not only express it, but also to reinvent it. Uh, I love the imagination of, like, even though Doechii is like such a huge famous artist right now, she's exploding on the scene. I
Yep.
love her creativeness. I love how vibrant she's keeping hip hop. I love how she's like being innovative in a way that shows uh even individuals of my age that, hip hop can be renewed. That feeling, that love for hip hop can be renewed and embraced, even on a large, with it being on a large scale. You can see how imaginative she is and how much she loves the art. You know,
Yeah, our bars are definitely
yeah,
phenomenal. I mean,
the bars are there,
you
the
can,
creativity is there, the bits and pieces of Kendrick, bits and pieces of Missy Elliott, Busta, lyrical dexterity, like that's so prominent. Like when you have like once in a lifetime generational artists like Doechii is, like she's absolutely she's exploding, but she has so much further to go. So salute to anyone like that who thinks like that, and the kids out there who are imagining right now, putting their first rhymes together. um that's very, very innovative and very inspirational for them.
speaking of artists, how do you feel about, the OGs, what I'm saying, who are really coming back and making sure they really have a stamp on, the game? You had LL put an album out. You had Ghostface put an album out. You had Snoop just dropped his album.
Right,
Uh,
man.
Redman.
Hmm.
You had RBX, Dog
Yep,
Pound. I
yep.
mean, a lot of these guys, came out and just really solid products, solid, albums. What are your thoughts about that?
I love it. Shout out to Craig G who just dropped one. Shout out to like all of the individuals like that are my age and older who realize that just like rock and roll, just like jazz, hip hop is here to stay. Like, and we don't have to, bow out. We don't have to reinvent who we are as a person per se. We can remain true to our aesthetics and what we love and value. Of course, Master Ace is like the prototype when it comes to longevity and abilities. And it's incredible to watch them continue to grow and continue to like do it on a consistent basis, and it gives me energy and the youth give me energy. Like I learn from the youth. That's very big for me, learning from the younger generation as an OG. And it's very big to learn from cats like Master Ace and Craig G and Ghostface. And um, my wife and I were just blessed to like be backstage at the Raekwon, Ghostface, and Jizza show at the House of Blues in Boston, and to see Jizza on stage, to see how all of them, but like Jizza at his age and how commanding he is, and not only commanding on stage, but being able to capture the crowd with a band is a whole different animal. For anybody who's an artist out there, knowing how to be able to project when you're dealing with the band as your soundscape, that's a whole different animal. So shout out to all of the legends. Shout out to all the individuals who are continuously, paving the way and continuously, allowing themselves to know that hip hop, even though it's in its 51st year, it's like which is kind of young. A lot of people may think but that's kind of young for music.
Yeah.
Um, uh, it's a genre that's here to stay. And when you got these graves and these beards, the beard, that doesn't mean it's time for you to like pack it up and head for the hills. You can absolutely keep doing it. You can expect a lot more music from me this year. Those who have followed my path this year, they know I put out so much music in 2024, and it's only going to continue in 2025.
Speaking of which, how much creativity, how much does that help your creativity to see everything going on? Putting music on and
It consistently helps my creativity uh to watch the Tiny Desk series and see, like I said, Doechii do her thing, but then to be able to see a Master Ace Rock in there, Scarface, his phenomenal one, the Locks recent one, that's innovation, that's inspiration, traveling globally, but I've been kind of like putting myself in a box and focused for a long period of time on Europe than the United States, a little sprinkle of Canada, but now it's imperative for my village to expand that into the other Americas, the Caribbean, into Africa, into Asia, into Australia, and to like know that the global landscape is ours for the embracing and for the taking. We just got to step out and do it. So um, there's so much that I'm using as my inspiration, and a global mind frame is always A1 in that.
how
Yeah.
was it seems like that a lot of the international crowd seems to value it definitely a lot more than the national crowd, but I see that in certain corners it's turning around. Like you said, Doechii, there's Griselda, there's Coast Contra. So there's a lot more lyricism that's bubbling back up a little bit, and you see few others that are really kind of take that mantle on. Um, does that also give you a lot more energy, a lot more hopefulness, to see kind of those things happening, even though it still seems like the European audience, the international audience seems to value hip hop a lot more.
First off, I would not agree with that notion that the international, like um, the European fans and the European people respect hip hop more. I wouldn't say that. Like I think that's like kind of the narrative that has been like the ongoing narrative for a long period of time, and their appreciation for hip hop absolutely exists. It's profound, but we got to step into the reality that the United States, at the end of the day, is always the trendsetter when it comes to like a lot of things. So, like, I think because like we have so much music coming out in the United States and there's so much that's happening at one time and there's nothing in the world like the United States, I think some of it gets lost on us. But my biggest fan base still to this day always is the United States. It's by a long mile. Like the people who listen to my music, who are true fans of the Rex music, first and foremost in the United States, followed by like areas like Germany and the UK and Canada, but they're miles away from the United States in terms of the scope of following. And I think that's the truth for the majority of artists. So we have to first and foremost like put to bed the notion that Europe kind of like is true to the art form and individuals in the States are not so much. I think we have so much to options, right, in the States. So, we're kind of not organized and focused on supporting, more than one artist at a time. Many times, like people have their favorites. They pit each other, pit me against Terminology, Terminology against Skyzoo, Skyzoo against Master Ace, so on and so forth. And so you lose some of that luster of what we had back in the day where you could appreciate art for just being art. And you could love NWA and you can love Public Enemy and you can love all these different groups and listen to them all the way through. We're being, destroyed by Spotify and all this other stuff. But there are still, like, wherever we go in the United States, there are still taggers, graffiti artists out there. There's still B-boys out there making waves. There are still DJs being phenomenal as DJs. And this is the bedrock of where hip hop is. If it's, when my wife and I went to the Thought Fest, shout out to, 60 East at the Thought Fest in Ontario, California, and hip hop is thriving. Hip hop is thriving in San Antonio, Texas. Hip hop is thriving in Houston. Hip hop is thriving in Miami. And so we have to like acknowledge and know that United States is just huge and it's so spread across. So many times we don't see as much of it. But I was in Denver, Colorado. Murs doing his thing, incredible. They're doing incredible like festivals, like the way I see in Europe, the same kind of festivals in the States. So I'm in 2025 gonna travel globally, but I'm also gonna focus on tapping into more of home. So you'll see me in Seattle. You'll see and my wife, who is my hype woman, she comes on stage with me. She also directs my videos. Like you'll see us out there, Seattle, Portland. You'll see us in hopefully Chicago and in Ohio, in areas where I haven't frequented before. North Carolina. I've never done a show in North Carolina. I need to be in North Carolina.
Yeah.
I'm absolutely excited to like go out there. I've been to North Carolina. I've been to shows in North Carolina. Charlotte is super dope. Raleigh is super dope. Where you at? Where you at right now?
I'm in Fayetteville.
Okay,
Yeah.
so yeah, Fayetteville, like where all the vills, all the like vibes in the South, man. I love the South. I'm gonna be in February. I'm gonna be out in Tulsa, Oklahoma. I'm gonna be out in OKC. I'm gonna be doing shows out there. So I really look forward to like making my way to North Carolina. Of course, Atlanta. That's like the other home. So yeah, absolutely. I'd love to come out to Milwaukee too. We spoke about that, but um, absolutely, absolutely.
So, like I said, it's kind of everything spread out and kind of the constant battle that we've always had, or constant division that we've had between like commercial and independent, it's kind of changes the vision of everybody as far as
I
seeing
think
seeing
so.
what's really going on.
I think so. I think people have this tendency. If you can give me a second, Queen, do you have the charger over there? No. You don't. Oh, I got it. Could you pass me that charger? I just before this passes off, just give me 1 second. I apologize.
Mhm.
Um, I think there are some phenomenal artists on the commercial level, and I think commercial artists get this uh this disrespect. Thank you, my love. Um, uh, Commercial artists get this there's this notion that because an artist is commercial that they're not true hip hop in many ways. We don't we blur the lines in a negative way and don't appreciate people for their art when they're phenomenal at what they do and they gain commercial success. But gaining commercial success doesn't mean like you're not, true to the art form. And being underground doesn't mean that you're a dope lyricist, like that's not how it works. Um, what I will say is I'm super appreciative of dope. Dope is dope, and that's it. And commercially, like I said, I will go back to TDE now because remember this thing presses the TDE has put out some phenomenal artists through the years, and we're witnessing artists who can be successful and still be creative and be dope. Um, and they're giving you props. Yeah, she is a phenomenal woman. She's here attempting to help me like put the light and set up set up myself up as I'm like because I don't really pay attention to any of that stuff. And she's like, King, this is what you got to do. And in 2025, we got to organize. Like we really on that mind frame, and we're on that focus, that plane where we can continue to grow in this art and be successful. Um, but commercial versus underground, notwithstanding, I don't think commercial makes you a bad artist, and I don't think underground makes you a great artist, and vice versa. I think there are those who blur the lines. I like coloring outside of the lines. I love doing, records with artists who are grime artists and who are lo-fi artists and who are jazzy. Like I did a record with this brother Nezra from Milan, Italy this year called a vibe called Yes. One of the records had Master Ace on it called Departures, and that record was super jazzy. I loved it for its jazziness, and some of the other artists I worked with this year, Chill Ill from Soul Chain Records. That was a pretty jazzy record. I got the opportunity to sing on a bunch of records. People who've known me for my career know that like I love to blur the lines with making soulful records, singing on records. I'm looking forward to doing more stuff like Fela, which has like an Afro Caribbean vibe, and I want to do more of that stuff. I want to do Afro punk, Afro funk, just everything. Because like hip hop is so much more than just boom bap, and boom bap is incredible. It's always going to be my breadwinner. It's going to be my day one, and I'm always going to use that as my foundation. But as artists, we have to grow and we have to glow bigger. And I feel like it's our duty as artists to do that.
Definitely, I feel like that's something you have to be able to exercise every creative muscle.
Absolutely.
Um, and to go back to your roots and you know place you came from, Massachusetts is known for so many different artists. Um, Ed Og, Made Men, uh, just to name a few. Um, how do you feel like you know the history or the tapestry of hip hop kind of remembers or has given you given any place, or does it give enough place or enough light to um, people from Massachusetts?
I think I think when it comes to places getting their respect and just due in a location, I don't we are in a very unique genre where if you want it, you gotta go get it. You know what I'm saying? Like, and you want the respect. Respect is really just given. You know what I'm saying? You gotta step out and you gotta take it. And so when Edo came out in the '90s, you know, he had a grind that was impeccable, and he did it in a way that made it possible to be visible from Massachusetts. And it was also around the time, like, there was New Edition, and, like, there were things bubbling in Massachusetts that made it possible for that to be the case with Made Men as well. And when, with Guru, like, Guru had to leave Massachusetts. Guru had to leave to New York to be visible. Like, Static had to leave Massachusetts to be visible. Um, I, in a lot of ways, had to leave as well. Like, I didn't leave for musical purposes. When I went down to Florida, when I went to Georgia, when I spent time away from Massachusetts, but in a lot of ways, that's what, like, gave me more visibility when I was away from home. Uh, and people paid attention more. Getting outside of our local surroundings is imperative for us to be visible. Now, when you're in a place like Texas, which is so huge, and California, which is so huge, and even North Carolina to a degree, but I don't know if, like, it's the same kind of notion as Texas and Cali, in that Texas is so big that you can be an artist from Texas and you can blow up in Texas and just be huge on a global level just by being big, like Underground Kings and Paul Wall and individuals who came from there, Ghetto Boys, and, like, same thing with, NWA and RBX, and, the DOC, and, like, whatever, like, even though they became global artists, like, they could travel just California and live off of California alone. That's not the case in Massachusetts. That's absolutely the case in New York, because New York is the bedrock. Even though some would argue it's not no longer the Mecca, like, that's very debatable to me. Like, I think New York will always be the Mecca of hip hop. Like, I don't think you could, like, a lot of people say Atlanta's the Mecca of hip hop. Like, I don't buy into that notion. That's, like, insane to me. Like, I apologize, Ludacris, but y'all out of your mind. Like, you know what I'm saying? Like, yo, like, the Mecca of hip hop will always be and is always New York. You know what I'm saying? So, like, that's just what it is. Even if they're changing their style, whatever the case may be, that's just what it is. But Massachusetts is different. So we had to travel, man. I had to travel down to Virginia. I had to travel to New Jersey. I had to go to Ohio. Like, we got out and we hit the mud running, like, in order to get visibility. Like, before I ever was in the Source magazine, XXL magazine, back when they had Vibe, I was in Vibe magazine. Before I was even in these magazines, I had to put my feet on the concrete in mad different locations. So we paid a lot of dues by passing out flyers in locations where we weren't even performing, ciphering outside of buildings where we weren't even performing, and just hoping to be able to get in the building to grab the mic. Like, we did all that, all across. Like, we figured out ways to get down to different locations. So that's just the reality of um, how we got it in Massachusetts. And I'm sure that's the reality of how a lot of cats got it in, New Jersey, or, like, in Philly, and other locations like that. And I'm sure it was like that in North Carolina for other artists, and in South Carolina, and ATL before ATL got visibility. So
Definitely. You know, speaking of
yeah.
Houston and Oakland and places like that, that's the kind of thing I talk to other artists about when I talk about support, home support, and trying to build those type of infrastructures. That fact that Oakland had a complete homegrown infrastructure, and people sold out the trunk in Oakland, and they supported their home artists I think it's definitely, seems to be more difficult in other areas to do that. Unlike, Oakland and LA and Houston, who seem to have made it, created that type of infrastructure for themselves.
Valuable what you're saying. I think a lot of that infrastructure comes out of necessity. That's like, when you're in a place, when you're in a space of desperation, that's when you're at your most, and you're at your most vulnerable. That's when you become your most innovative and your most creative and your most authentic self. So I think in many ways, when individuals, obviously, that's what hip hop is bred from, like struggle. So when you get it from that, when you get it from the mud, when you come from the struggle, when you're tapped into the tapestry of the neighborhood, that's when, it's easier to like rally around artists who mimic and mirror like that struggle, and having certain outlets and visibility on a larger scale only make it more feasible and possible. In Massachusetts is not a hip hop state. It's like it's a first of all rock and some would say jazz, but like it's a rock and roll like state, and the radio stations, the popular commercial radio stations, were not open to playing anything that sounded like myself, LOG, Terminology, Slang, Easy Money, any of that. Nobody really wanted to hear Singapore King, dope or not dope. Like it just wasn't the message, it wasn't the vibrations for Massachusetts. So we had smaller college little radio stations like 88.9 and then 94.5, which is, the launch pad. That's the commercial radio station. They, they had a Sunday night that they opened up for like, local artists to like get a little visibility. But no traction for individuals to like become like super successful as artists, even though we have some phenomenally talented artists in Massachusetts. Visibility for Oompa, Black Sea, Latrell James, Exit Fame, and artists who are just doing an incredible job in Massachusetts are only being visible in Massachusetts because of it, unless they're getting out of Massachusetts and acknowledging and recognizing that the best way for you to get visibility back home even is to get out of home.
So, coming up on an hour,
Peace,
what
peace.
new projects that you have going on? What are your new projects?
I'm doing a bunch of stuff right now. Like I'm continuing Rex Drops 33 into 2025. Right now we're on album number 12, and it's because we're working on a way of fighting streaming and getting visibility beyond and appreciation for our art form beyond streaming. So I dropped 12 projects, 12 EP/album projects with artists globally in 2024. But I also I re-released the Rex album on vinyl, Gray Hairs album on vinyl, Straight No Chaser album on vinyl. I did 2 tapes, More Gray Hairs on tape, cassette. I did Gray Hairs on tape cassette, and I dropped More Gray Hairs for the first time the first time on tape and a reissue on CD. And outside of that, like I dropped 43 videos this year. The majority shot by my wife, either done through AI. She bought a camera, started getting into the editing work, and now she's doing my reels and my videos. And we're just working on being self-sufficient, self-reliant, and getting it again from the mud. No matter how much we go up and elevate, we can continue to get better. So shout out to everybody out there finding new ways to innovate and get better.
Definitely. And you feel like it's definitely a better way to kind of go. Everybody seems to be really trying to go direct to consumer and tap in that way.
Absolutely. I think looking at Spotify, looking at Apple Music, looking at these platforms that offer visibility, visibility isn't enough. Like, yeah, absolutely, we're thankful for a platform that allows us to get visibility. But I tell artists all the time, don't fall in love with these platforms. Don't fall in love with streaming or social media. What you need to do is build up your email list. Make sure you have something that can go with you, that can remain with you consistently. Continue to build person-to-person relationships. Get it on a guerrilla style. You have to know how to network in a way that doesn't rely on platforms. Like, yes, absolutely use the platforms for what they're there for. Because visibility on Instagram is important, TikTok is important, visibility as a content creator is absolutely invaluable. But growing your brand is bigger than these platforms, and it has to be through your website. My website is iamrex.com, and universallotus.com, and growing through those platforms, and figuring out how to improve upon your Bandcamp, growing subscriptions. That's what I'm building right now, a subscription through my Bandcamp, and exploring ideas for Even.biz and Patreon. Those are very important platforms to exist upon. And I got a lot of visibility as an artist coming from Lawrence, Massachusetts, on things like Spotify and Bandcamp, and that's due to my relationships that I built over 25 years with artists like who are goated in hip hop. And I do feel like I've earned my space amongst legendary individuals because I've continuously showed dedication to my pen. I showed dedication to hip hop as a whole. I remain consistent in releasing music that is important to the narrative of Black and Brown people. I remain consistent and active fighting global oppression. I've been a beacon of light for individuals who just look like us, and I'm going to consistently be that. I'm never going to change that narrative. That's always going to be a narrative for me whenever I do anything in hip hop. But that's also going to be the case when it comes to what we do outside of hip hop. Some of the things we're building for individuals dealing with mental health, dealing with health and wellness, how to put food in your body, like what not to put in your body. Like, those things are very valuable to me and my village, and people that look like us.
Yeah, that's definitely dope. One of um, I think I talked to Mickey Fax a couple weeks ago, and he was talking about doing things with mental health, and that's definitely big now, and definitely going to be big going forward. Um, so we definitely need to have everybody kind of lined up in that veil to try to move some of that forward.
Absolutely. Like, for a long period of time, our people, when I say our people, I mean Black and Brown people in general. Like, I know all people deal with oppression, trauma, and some forms of issues, but nobody has had it like we have. So, like, I'm not gonna like sit here and sugarcoat that for nobody, because that's just the reality. We know that's all. It's 2025. We know that's the reality. It's facts. So we can dead any other conversation about people talk about their version of isms and what have you. Nobody has had it worse than Black and Brown people in the history of the world. So our story doesn't start with slavery. Our story begins way beyond before that. Our story is the origin story. Our story is about being a reflection, and I think it's imperative for us to not only like recognize that, but acknowledge our trauma and say it's okay for us to seek healing in healing spaces. Because, like, for a long period of time, us as people, we avoided communicating that in spaces um, like that are considered therapeutic. Uh, we did the dozens for a long period of time. We find therapy in degrading one another. We find therapy in looking at our brother and oppressing our brother because we feel oppressed. So we have to get to the point where that's no longer how we approach dealing with our issues, but we look for like valuable solutions going to uh, that are going to uplift us as a community. And just because somebody doesn't readily agree with my version of spirituality, my version of, the narrative of coming from my community, we all have an aligned oppressor. We all have an aligned issue that we have to deal with. And that's the main starter, and I think foundation that we have to like deal with and utilize as our way forward.
And so we're going to go ahead and let people know, what are the names of your new projects coming out? Your new.
So the names, I don't have all the titles of records that I got dropping. Recently, I dropped a record called Outside with Mr. DL. Mr. DL is originally from New York. Now Lowell, Merrimack Valley is Lowell. Lawrence from Massachusetts, where I come from, like a lot of individuals from the north side of things in Massachusetts, almost in New Hampshire. That's where I come from. In this physical form in the north, right? So I have that record with Mr. DL is Untitled, but we dropped a single called Outside. We dropped another single called Wish You Would, and another single called This Is 40. Mr. DL has done, massive amount of my videos through the years. He's done a lot of videos for Terminology, and if you're from Massachusetts, it's a pretty good likelihood that Mr. DL is either shot for you or shot for someone you know. And he had this movie that came out, a film called The Sea of Green. My wife was actually like one of the main characters in that film before she was my wife. But a dope film called The Sea of Green that he dropped, and he has this YouTube series out right now where he's what's it called? I don't want to say it's called Abandoned America, but it's basically he's going into these different communities and he's looking at all the abandoned buildings, because there's a lot of abandoned structures all across America. And he does this in Ohio, he does it in like Missouri, all over Massachusetts, and all these so like he's an innovative director, but he's also a producer. And we're dropping a project like in the next month or two. Super dope producer and director. And then I'm also dropping a project with my brother Artisan. He's a member of the group ST The Squad with me. ST The Squad is myself, Terminology, Easy Money, DJ Deadeye, Superstar Hectic, and of course Artisan, Machete. That's the squad. And Artisan is a producer and rapper, and so he produced half the album. And then we have mainstays like Short Fuse, who is a regular Massachusetts. He's my favorite producer. He produced some of that record. And outside of those two records, there's a record with my brother Stone that I'm so looking for the people to hear. That's gonna be super dope this year. And then Five Fingers of Death. That's another album these are the ones that are closest to ready, and then I have another like 20 other than those that are like dropping this year as well.
So how does the recording process go for you? How do you kind of gather up beats and gather up things?
I'm headed to the studio tomorrow early. I'll be in the studio for about 5 hours doing features. More than like my own personal stuff. But how it usually goes is, I don't really, a lot of cats reach out to me to like, present me with production, but features are a mainstay in how I make money, full transparency. So A lot of times when artists are reaching out that way, it's not the best way for us to do work. I think the best way for us to do work is organically. If, you know, we meet organically and we work organically, or if we agree on a mutually beneficial, because I'm not only an artist who's thinking about, you know, rapping for the love of hip hop. This is how I exist on this earth as far as my living. So in order for us to do something, the bottom line has to make sense. Like a lot of times rappers, or producers, they say, well, I rap too, so why, you know what I'm saying, should I pay this artist to be on a record? Or I produce and I'm producing for you, I'm not asking anything from you. Usually I charge for beats. If you reach out to me and you're asking me for a feature on your record, then most of the time you're gonna pay for me to be presented on your record. I bring value as far as what I do when I write my 16s, when I write my hooks. I bring value in terms of what you're gonna get for visibility on social platforms and on streaming platforms. I offer a lot of visibility for individuals. And in 2025, it's important for individuals to know that. It's about time you really recognize and acknowledge that we're not bringing the same thing to the table as far as you know, what the bottom line holds. Then you have to acknowledge that at foundation level. You have to, like, as an artist, recognize when you have to respect an artist for their art. And so I won't approach individuals for free 99. If an individual tells me that they charge and they're like looking at me and they're like, listen, the bottom line is this is what I'm going to bring to you visibility wise. And this is what I'm going to bring to you, like, in terms of, you know, my skill set. I can only respect that. Now, if we offer the same, like, kind of playing field type of stuff, there's a lot of trade-off stuff that I do for artists like that. But when it comes to getting in the booth, let's remember that right there. Always.
All right. As we're coming up on the end of the show, is there anything else you want to, you know, let people know about?
I want to reiterate. I want to reiterate that first and foremost, I want to thank you for having me on the Underground Experience and having me again here. Like, you know, I appreciate you taking the time with me. I value your platform, and if there's anything you need from me, I'm here to be of assistance for you. I want people to go to IamREKS.com, support. You can also do that on Bandcamp /IamRex.com. If you want to support any of my merch, if you want to purchase vinyl, CDs, tapes. And then if you go to my Instagram right now, or my TikTok, my Instagram is Rex Hip Hop, and my TikTok is IamRex.com as well. If you go to either one of them, I have a bunch of reels going on right now that my wife shot for me. It's very important that people, if you're not able to purchase, if you're not able to support financially, that's totally fine. But if you could take a moment to either share, like, comment on any of it, I would greatly appreciate it. The art is the art. A lot of times we're like getting online and we're losing sight of it, and we're not really paying attention and watching it, because there's so much passing us by. I promise you, if you take 3 minutes of your time to watch one of these videos, you're going to be extremely happy. You're gonna remember what hip hop sounds like, and I'm thankful for the effort that my wife and I are putting into doing these reels. We're going to continuously bring them to you. We're building up a catalog of them. We're going to continue to shoot all across the world. If you want to reach out to my wife to get something shot for yourself, it's at Queen QUEEN _ philosophical PHILOSOPHICAL philosophical. So I know I spelled that right. That's a tough one, but I was a spelling bee champ, so we good. Yeah, just make sure you support us. You know, we're out here grinding on a regular basis, and we're getting it from the mud. In 2025, we still getting it from the mud, fam.
No doubt. Any other you know, advice for artists?
One thing, philosophical. So before the S is a O. But thank you for putting that, Sister Queen. Advice for artists: don't allow yourself to be pigeonholed in anything that somebody tells you you have to sound like or be like or gravitate towards. Um, color outside the lines as much as possible. That's my biggest takeaway for a lot of individuals, is to make sure that you dare to be different, and dare to color outside the lines of the narrative that people are trying to write for you. The best way that you're going to get it is by doing it that way and staying true to like your core values. That's what I'm consistently focused on in 2025 more than anything. I'm focused on organization. So get your organization skills in order, and go support imrex.com. Appreciate y'all for taking the time with me.
No doubt. As always, we appreciate you for being on here, and we hope to have you on again, and hopefully to collaborate in the future.
Yo, always ready, brother.
And as I say, nobody knows everything. Everybody knows something. Network. And with that,
Oh,
please check out www.empire music as well to see how you can be a part of the Underground Experience funder for the documentary and all the other projects that we have going on as well. And of course, support the other artists that we try to feature. We need to keep this network growing and keep everything going. All right.
let's get it, brother.
And with that, we out.
Peace
Appreciate
and
you.
love, yo. Word. Best, King.